Hey everyone, welcome back to Imagination Tech. So about a month ago I lost Sierra, my quad, and it was a situation where it was practically unrecoverable. I lost my GoPro as well, and it was really devastating at the time during that day. But yeah, I wanted to first thank everyone for sending their words of encouragement, words of support. And no, I didn't get any free stuff because of that, but the support and the encouragement was all I needed. And actually, though I already stopped my Drone Drop subscription, I did have most of the parts to build a new quad in one of those boxes. So today I want to show you this new quad that I have built, and it's built from all Drone Drop parts. And I want to show you how I built this. All right, stay tuned. As our base, we're going to be using this Source 2 frame from TBS. Now I do have a build video of this frame, and if you want to check that out, I'll post a link here on the corner. And yeah, so do note that on that video I got the top frame reversed, and one commenter pointed that out, so thank you for that. So this is the bottom plate in relation to the top plate. This is supposed to be the camera side and this the antenna side. But I don't think it really matters too much as long as you mount these rubber TPU camera mounts the right way, or the right side in relation to the top plate. So we'll put that aside for now. These are the Boxcutter motors from Drone Drop, and these are 2207 2450 kV, and it is a nice orange color as you will see. So this is what we're going to be using for this build. The flight controller we're going to be using is the Helio Spring AIO flight controller. So you've probably seen that already. I also have a video about this Helio Spring flight controller, and this is the flight color. Yeah, this is the flight color 4-in-1 ESC. It is a Rapture BLS 4-in-1 ESC. I'm not sure if that's focusing. Yep, so this is a 30 amp 2-4S ESC, and that's what we're going to be using for this build. We are also going to be using this TBS Unify Pro Nano 5G8 as our VTX. I was supposed to use the Runcam Robin, which I also unboxed a couple of videos back, but since that FPV camera was mounted on Sierra, and I lost Sierra, she also have a video about that. But yeah, Sierra is down in the septic tank forever, I think, until someone cleans that up and recovers it, probably at a waste treatment plant someday. I don't know what's gonna happen to that, but yeah, what I do have right now with me is this TBS FPV cam. I believe this is a CCD cam. So this is also on the TBS website, but yeah, it was included in one of the drone drops, and I actually put this in another build, but so this is not new, but this is what we're gonna be using as the FPV cam. It's not spectacular, but for now, that's what I have, and that'll do. For the antennas, we're going to be using these TBS Triumph, so hopefully that will do very nicely with our build. It's going to give us a nice clear signal, and it is also in a fabulous orange color. And these are left-hand circular polarized Triumphs, but that's not a problem because I also have, it comes in a pair, so one's going to go on my goggles, and I also have a left-hand circular polarized and patch antenna for my goggles. So some bits and bobs we're going to be using is this 9-piece soft mount silicone kit, which I also used previously, and I still have a couple of them. So we're gonna use 4 of these. So I'm gonna probably need to reorder some more if I'm gonna make new builds. So these are going to go on the arms beneath the motors to make them all soft mounted and reduce the vibrations on this thing. And Probably a battery grip pad underneath. I'm not sure if we really need that since it's going to be the battery is going to be bottom mounted. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to use this or maybe just some other grip pad, because I don't want to waste this on a bottom mounted thing. And lastly is what battery strap we're going to use, and I have accumulated a lot, so it's just going to be a matter of choice. I'm going to use this high vis because it's also colored orange, or one of these ethics, you know, lipo straps. This is a GoPro strap, so probably, well, I can still use it, but it's really meant for use with a GoPro. The drone drop box is great because you know, you get to build an inventory of things that, you know, are pretty good and pretty useful. So just like this one, never had a reason to build this one out because I did have Sierra as my main quad, but now that I've lost Sierra, well, now it's the perfect time to bring this out of storage and, you know, put these together. And yeah, so that's what we're gonna do, and without further ado, let's go get on with our build. But first, we're gonna be putting our soft mount silicones onto our frame. Notice that these holes have a 16 by 19 millimeter you call this bolt pattern, and this one has just 16 by 16, so we're probably only going to be able to mount 2 screws beneath these, but we'll probably just stretch out one of these other holes or something just to get, you know, maybe at least 3 screws in, right? So let's just do that quickly. So now that we have our silicone mount mounted on our frame, what you do is you push your bolts in first, and then line that up with the silicone mount, and then press it down onto the frame. Okay, so, and we have 2 bolts in. Now we just screw in our motors, and then once we got our motors in place, we can then screw in the 3rd or 4th screw. So since the silicone mount has a 16-19 bolt pattern, what I did was I just you know, pushed this 3rd screw in until it punctured into the silicone. So you can see that there's a piece of silicone. It's non-conductive, so you know, you could choose to remove it or just, you know, leave it there. But that is how to punch a hole into that silicone. You just put that screw in, just screw it tightly until it breaks through the silicone. So now I can either put a 4th screw using the same trick, same method, or, you know, I could just leave it at 3 screws, which I think I will do. Now we just need to repeat this for the rest of the arms. After screwing in all 4 motors, up next we have our flight collar Rapture. This is the 4-in-1 ESC, and it's also the ESC in the flight collar Rapture S tower. I'm not even sure if this is sold you know, individually or separately, but that's what I found on the flight collar website. It comes with the this connector pin, this ESC connector pin, which will go in there, and then we'll just solder that into our flight controller. It also comes with an XT60 and these mounts, these nylon mounts. So that's what we're going to put next onto our frame. So the Source 2 frame has both mounting holes for a 36 by 36 stack and a 20 by 20 stack. We are going to be using the 36 by 36 stack, so we'll just push the screw through from the bottom through there, and then just screw in our nylon standoffs. So I should have done this when I was building the frame, but since it was I already built the frame, or rather assembled the frame several months ago, I'm just gonna do this now. Remove one of the arms from the frame, and just gonna slip this fat piece of heat shrink over the frame, over the arms and the wires. So that's gonna make for a very clean build, and we're just gonna do this for all of the arms. Okay, now I've done heat shrinking all of my you know, all of my arms and the wires, and also pre-trimmed the wires, and you know, I've already laid this out how I want the wires to be laid out. So it's probably worth taking a little bit more time doing this, just so you have a very clean build, or a clean build. So probably took me around 30 minutes just figuring out how I wanted to wire this, but now all is good, all is ready, and now we're just gonna solder, or rather for now we're gonna pre-tin all of these pads, and then we'll pre-tin all of the wires, and then yeah, it's just a matter of soldering them together. So let's go ahead and get started with that. now that we're done pre-tinning everything, you can now solder this onto the ESC. Alright, now that we finished soldering our ESC, we now need to solder on our pigtail. We'll just tin this this pad right here. Alright, nice and shiny. Here I'll be using an old pigtail because it's already short and I didn't want to use that new pigtail. So we're just gonna pre-tin, just coat this thing all around with solder. Okay, now we can carefully solder our pigtail onto our ESC. So I'm just gonna plug the ESC connector back in, and the pinouts are actually printed on the board itself, so we can see that this is ground, this is VBAT, which we're gonna use this to power our Helio flight controller. The next is the current sensor. I also want that to go around here, and the rest of these are for the motors. So this is motor signal 4, which is on the Helio board. Is, you know, this matches up. This is motor 1, 2, 3, 4. And it matches up with the motor 1, 2, 3, 4 of the ESC. So if this is going to be 4, we want it to be somewhere around here, or maybe we can just, you know, solder that directly. We'll shorten that wire. Motor wire 3 is going out of, but through the back as well. 2 is right here at front, and 1 again out the back. So this is how we are going to be setting up our wires, and we just need to plop on our flight controller first, then we'll start tinning our wires. We're gonna be tinning our wires as well as the pads that we're gonna be using it for, using them with. So obviously we need to have our VBAT and ground here. This RX pad is going to be for the current sensor, the yellow wire, and the corners for the motor signal wires. And it's basically it for now before we tin the other pads for our camera and our VTX. So I wanted to show you something that I wasn't able to show you earlier because I forgot about this, but this is the Ola FPV VTX Assassin. And what this is where you will solder your for example, this is a TBS Unify Pro Nano. We would just solder it there, and we would solder our RX, our receiver, which I also don't have at the moment. It's still waiting for Crossfire Nano RX. But yeah, you would solder these things there, and all of the pads and stuff are, you know, are included with this board. So it's a clean setup. You mount it on top of your stack, so at least your what do you call this, your VTX and your RX is on a stack, and it comes with gummies, so that's gonna, you know, soft mount that. And according to the official description of Ola FPV, it's to, you know, minimize the shock that goes to your VTX and your RX, prevent further damage. Now this is a JST 9-pin connector, and this one plugs into the side. And now once you have all of your VTX and your RX connected up here, maybe even your camera, because there are pads for your video and your camera, this connector harness is what you then solder onto your flight controller. And you have smart audio, you have VTX on-off control, so that there's a physical switch if you want to turn off your VTX. There's that, but if it's on, you can switch your VTX on and off via a switch on your transmitter as well. So this one is what we're going to be using. It has a lot of features, so you should go check out. I'll put links of all the parts I used in this build in the description anyway. But yeah, let's solder our TBS Unify Pro Nano 5G 5.8 onto this board. Do take note that this Ola FPV VTX Assassin can also take the other TBS Unify VTXs, and it's also compatible with a FreeSky XM Plus, Crossfire Nano RX, and, you know, a couple of other VTX and receivers. So here I'm using some pieces of wire, but if you have like blue tack or something like that, you can use that as well. But I'm using some pieces of wire just to make sure that all of these things are level. Alright, so once we have that, we just need to take our soldering iron and then just solder all of these anchor points and all of the connector switches. The VTX Assassin also has pads for your camera, so you can either hook it up onto the 5 volts, or in this case it's hooked up to the VBAT. Then that's the second pad is for video signal, and the third is ground. So that's going to go pretty nicely. Everything about the VTX and RX and the camera is all going to this board, and we have very convenient connector harness here going to our flight controller. So I've started the wires on the wire harness with the VTX Assassin, and now I'm going to be I already pre-tinned these wires, but now I'm also going to be pre-tinning the wires on the Helio board that are relevant to these to the wires on the VTX Assassin. So that would be RX3 and TX3 for Crossfire. We're probably going to use TX5 for our VTX on-off control. We'll be needing 5 volts and ground as well. By the way, we're using TX3 and RX3 because we know we're going to be using a Crossfire receiver, but otherwise we would have soldered that onto the regular RX pin here, which has an inverted signal. And what we need is for Crossfire is an uninverted signal. That's why we're doing it here. We also need the pad for the camera. And sorry, we need a video in. This is the right one, and the video out, which goes to the VTX. And I think that is about it. Okay. All right, so we're not going to be using our camera control pad because yeah, I just don't want to use the camera control pad. I'd rather use the remote control with if I needed to control the camera. But so yeah, we're not gonna be using that. So again, we have 5 volt ground, 1 2 3 4 5 volt ground. These two are for Crossfire, just for VTX camera control. We have, oh yeah, VBAT. We're also gonna need to solder onto VBAT, which we're probably just gonna tap directly onto this one. Okay. So first off, let's do the 5 volts and ground. Ground. The next is the RX signal wire for lost no lightning there. So we're gonna solder this onto RX3. The next wire, green wire, is for TX. Next, the blue wire is going to be for the camera control, rather the VTX on-off on a switch. And okay, so we're going to be removing this VTX power from TX5. We're going to hook up a smart audio to TX5 instead. I'm not sure where we can put this because TX2 is an inverted port. But let's just try that out, and you know, if that doesn't work, there's always the physical switch on the VTX Assassin board, so we can always use that. It would suck because we can't use it on a switch, but yeah, I can live with that. Okay, so this one goes to VBAT, which is right underneath. Probably just do it like this. Just want it to stick enough. You don't want to melt all the solder. And I accidentally melted this one. So we have VBAT there, and then the next one is for the VTX, which we're gonna solder here. Oops. last one is for the camera. Okay, so I think we are done with wiring everything up. Not too happy with this VTX, this VBAT wire, so I think I might probably just try to shorten that out, cut that, and then just make that a very shorter wire. But basically that's it. We are done with our wiring, and I think we are almost done. We just need to screw in our camera in the front, and then we're just gonna solder our Crossfire Nano RX there, and we should be good to go. And we're just gonna close this up. Our TBS Crossfire Nano RX has finally arrived, and this comes with it's a very small RX, and it comes with this 4-pin header, which we are going to be soldering onto this side. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is to cover this thing with heat shrink wrap and leaving those 4 pins exposed. Now this doesn't come with a heat shrink, but I do have this clear piece of heat shrink which we're going to be using. So now that our Crossfire Nano RX is wrapped in heat shrink, we now take our VTX Assassin again, and then we'll take this 4-pin header, we'll slot that into these 4 slots, which are ground, 5 volts, S-bus and telemetry, or in this case channel 1 and channel 2, and our Crossfire Nano RX is going to slot in there as well. So it doesn't really matter if you have if you have the long pins on your header on the top side or the bottom side, because we're going to be cutting them with our wire cutters anyways. But for now, yeah, so the purpose of that heat shrink is to make sure that your Crossfire Nano RX doesn't come into contact with any of the contacts on the board. So now we're just gonna do a quick bit of soldering. I'm just gonna hold this like that to, so that the Crossfire Nano RX is resting on the board itself, so it's a little bit angled. And while holding that, I'll probably just get my soldering iron and start tinning or start soldering these pins onto the board. So hopefully they're maintaining their angle. On the back of the VTX Assassin, there's also a pad for if you're using a Flight 1 flight controller, or a regular BetaFlight flight controller. So you need to bridge these 2 pins depending on which flight controller you have. Okay, forgot to bridge these 2 solder pads together, which we also need for the RX to turn on. Okay, so just a quick explanation. When you have your RX bridged to on, that will always keep your receiver on. If you bridge it to the kill pad, then that would turn your RX off when you turn your VTX off, and your RX is not gonna turn on again. So you don't want that, and that's gonna be very dangerous. Just in case you accidentally turn off your VTX, you're not gonna be able to turn your RX on again, and if you are not anywhere near your quad, you're gonna lose it basically. So now all we need to do is to plug this in. And then check connectivity between this the RX and the pad on the flight controller, which is the yellow and the green one. So testing channel 1 on the Crossfire, and channel 2 is connected to our flight controller. And we can do the test on the rest of the pads, but for the brevity of this video, we'll just do just that, and I'll just test that off camera. Finally, we've got it all hooked up. We can check if we have any shorts by checking the continuity on our XT60 connector. There's no shorts there, not on the frame, not on anything. Yep, and my continuity tester is working. I also have this smoke stopper from also from Drone Drop, which we're going to be using. It doesn't have a bulb, it just has a fuse, so everything seems to be working as normal, as expected. And our VTX Assassin switch, if we switch that off, that turns off the VTX, but our RX is still turned on, so our RX is always going to be on, and that's how we want it to be. On our TX, we're going to create a new model, and we're going to select multi. Throttle is going to be, we want it to be AETR, so throttle is going to be on channel 3. Oops. Aileron is going to be on channel, roll, pitch, and yaw is going to be, the rudder is going to be on channel 4. So, yep. And then we're just gonna go through we're gonna turn off the internal module, and then we're gonna turn on the Crossfire. And then from here we then go to the Lua scripts. I forgot how do we get to Lua scripts. Next, we go into binding mode. So here we just need to push on our bind button. And we have here, it says update, and I'm guessing that means it's updating. That's why it has a blue colored light on. Once the firmware update is finished, both the Crossfire Nano RX and the Micro TX should have a solid green light to it. That means that they are already updated and bound together, and that that there is a link between the two of them. So now we are practically done with the quad, and we can now close this up. I'm just going to remove this. So we're just going to close the top, screw the top plate down because
low battery.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Telemetry lost.
Yeah, so we're practically done with this, and we're just going to screw the top plate down. And then lastly, we're just going to mount this stock Crossfire antenna. One last thing is I mounted my my stock Crossfire antenna in an Immortal L configuration, just like Mr. Steele. I will post a link to how he did that. I just copied that. This is not my original idea, so that's Mr. Steele's how Mr. Steele sets up his Crossfire antenna. And lastly, I put this. It's not an Umagod. It's not an Umagrip. This is just a regular 3M non-slip pad, and I also slipped one of these DYS straps I got from one of my previous drone drop boxes, and we're all set. So right now we're all closed up. I'm just gonna tighten off these screws, and then let's go ahead and over to BetaFlight or ButterFlight in this case, because we have a Helio board, and finish the setup of this quad. Once you plug in your quad to your computer's USB, you now run BetaFlight, or in this case ButterFlight, because I have Helio, and just click on connect. And we just want to see that, in general, the flight controller is working from this screen. Next, we go to the configurations tab, and one of the first things I would change is the arm angle. I set it to 180 degrees so that it will arm regardless of its orientation. And you want to check the motor settings are correct, and of course we are using Crossfire, so we set that to CRSF. Obviously we're already using a serial based receiver, and for now I think that is it, and we just need to click on save and reboot to save those settings. Going on to the ports tab, we have since we have our Crossfire on TX3, and then we also set smart audio on TX1, and TX4 will have ESC telemetry, and we just click save and reboot as well. Now plugging in our battery into our quad, we now head on over to the receivers tab, where we can see that the control sticks are reflecting on the movement of the bars here on each channel, and we also want to set the RSSI for the corresponding aux channel depending on how you have your Crossfire setup. So it's probably going to output either on aux 4 or on aux 8 depending on if you have 8 channel or 12 channel, or if you're outputting the RSSI on channel 8 or channel 12. Heading over to the modes tab, of course we set our arm mode, and I also like setting the angle mode and horizon mode, even though I fly mostly acro. It's something that I put there just for emergencies. Now in the motors tab, we want to accept the risk, and then slowly, just a little bit, turn on the motors, just so that you can see which way the motors are turning. And we probably could stick on some tape onto those motors, or just feel it with your fingers, but make sure that the props are not connected. If we forgot to turn on reverse props, it's not going to reverse the direction of the motors, so you need to. So if any of the motors aren't spinning correctly, you're going to need to have to go into BL Heli and then flash the firmware from there. So I'm not going to go in depth on flashing your firmware. Just make sure that your battery is plugged, because I was literally pulling my hair out. Not literally, figuratively pulling my hair out, trying to figure out why BL Heli wasn't reading my my ESCs, and I thought I had a busted ESC. So in my case, I had to update my firmware so that I could reverse the motor directions. And I'm just gonna fast forward through this, and then once you're done with flashing the firmware, you can now set the motor direction depending on which motors you feel are not which motors you tested are not spinning the right way, depending also on whether you are running it props in or props out. Next, we're going to be configuring our VTX switch. From the CLI tab, we type resource to list all of the resources, and we take note which one is TX2, which is where our VTX Assassin is wired up to, where the switch wire is wired up to. And we free that by typing resource serial_TX2 none. So that would free that resource. Now you should take note which resource that was. In this case, it's A02. So next we need to type in resource pin IO1 A02, and that would assign that resource to pin IO1. Next we need to set to create we just need to type set pin IO box 40, 0,0,0, and also we need to set aux2 to I'll just link to these instructions in the description so you can see what's happening. But you just need to type these values in, which will create a new mode box in the modes tab. And then after you've done all of this, you can now click on save, and then we're going to go back to the modes tab and set our VTX switch on which aux channel we want to set it to. And you can see that we have a user one mode. You can just choose which aux channel. In this case, I want I want it off only when the switch is off. If it's in the middle or the up position, then I want it to be turned on. Right. So that's it for what we need to set for our CLI, and what we need to set for BetaFlight. So we're just gonna go through the configuration quickly, since this shouldn't be anything new. I renamed it to DropSrc because this is a drone drop build with a Source 2 frame, so wasn't feeling too creative, so that should do for now. Right, so in the mixer tab you have your default first four channels for AETR. Yes, I'm sorry about that. I have ARM set to channel 5, modes to channel 6. I have my VTX power on channel 7 and turtle mode on channel 8. So now all that's left to do is to take this out and fly. One last thing I almost forgot to show you is how much this weighs, and this comes out to around 298 grams, which is just a wee bit less than 300 grams, and even with a 4S battery this comes out to 465 grams, 464 grams. So it's really light, and you can really feel that you know, even just holding it. It's much lighter than my freestyle quad, that's for sure. And also I also forgot that the Source 2 frame already comes with a pre-cut, a laser cut you know, battery pad. It's also very grippy. Actually, I think it's the same material, but yeah, this comes with a frame, so that saves you the hassle of cutting these holes for the screws. But at least I got a spare. So yeah, all right. So that is it, and the only thing left for us to do is to go maiden this thing. So who is the drone drop subscription for? If you're just, you know, out there building your first squad, probably not, because you want to, you know, purchase all of the parts you need in one go. But after you've built your first squad, it's really nice to have that drone drop subscription, because every month you get something, you get a useful, you get you know, one of these really nice premium parts. You get some tools like the smoke stopper I used, and then you get some accessories like the heat shrink, or like the soft mount pads for, you know, for the motors, and all of those nice little stuff. And a sticker sheet also comes in that box. So you know, when you look at it, you don't know when it's going to be useful, or if it's going to be useful at all. But you know, after around six months or even a year of boxes, you're sure to have enough parts to build a new quad with all of those parts, or at least stockpile them so that you can you know, use those parts as replacements for when you break something when you're out in the field and when you're out flying, right? So the only thing left to do for us is to maiden this thing, because this hasn't been flown yet, aside from a hover test taken care of, you know, the Tiny Philippines guys. But yeah, we haven't flown this, you know, in any sense of the term. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. We're gonna go out, fly this thing. And yeah, so I'm just gonna leave you some footage of some DVR of this thing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, click on that like. If it sucks, then click on thumbs down. That's okay. And then make sure you hit that subscribe button, so anytime I put and hit that bell button, so anytime I put out a new video, you get notified as well. All right. So anyway, that has been it, guys. Thank you everyone for your support and for continuing to watch the stuff here on my channel. As always, keep building and keep flying.